28 sayılı
2001, we have the electricity market law. So as of March 2001, when this law was enacted, I worked very actively since then, and I worked in lots of fields, especially in terms of when we put wind on the agenda before 2007 or after 1st of November 2007. So the sector representatives will know the importance of 1st of November 2007. So after and before this date, when we look at our progress, we have taken steps forward. So in terms of realizing projects and also in terms of legislation, we have done lots of things so far. And now, when we look if we are 100% okay, of course we have some drawbacks because some experiences without being seen, we cannot achieve some experiences. So for this reason, with the increase in our installed capacity, with the increase in our experiences, we will solve and we will fill our gaps together with the private sector and public sector together. And briefly, from past to present, in terms of power, what is our situation in terms of wind? So I would like to recall this to you. So now we have operating 2,100 megawatt power plant now. It first started in Çeşme, İzmir, with 300 megawatts. Now it is 2,000. So before 1st of November 2007, there was an application for 3,500, but as of 1st of November 2007, there was an application for 78,000 megawatts. But this is even a signal for developing WPP projects. So we have started with 78,000 megawatts, and when we look at the last applications, when we look at the transmission and also the other aspects, there's again an application for additional 9,000 megawatts. But of course, here we should look at the projects which are feasible and effective. So, of course, these was ensured. Today we have 11,000 megawatt projects, and also they are connected, and now the 2,100 megawatt is being operated. So we are planning to have this 11,000 megawatt as a target. So in the strategic document of the ministry, this is said so. And I told about 1st of November 2007 project. So most of the power, so 5,500 megawatts for 5,500 megawatts, there were some capacity allocation competitions, and more than 500 companies participated for 87 different connection points, and there were some competition for the packages, and in total 9,000 megawatt was oriented for project development and also interviews. So when we look at our point now, of course, we first received the applications, and then we have announced the capacities. So we have started from the end, but now we are on the accurate point, I think. The reason for that is TWEC, Turkish Electricity Transmission Company, today, over this 11,000 megawatts, will accomplish additional capacity work. So this capacity work will be guiding us and will determine a stop for us for 2023 target, which is 20,000 megawatts. So 11,000 megawatt is targeted in the end of 2013. But if we can have a consensus with EMRA, Energy Market Regulatory Authority, we are trying to have these projects. Of course, when we announce new capacity, of course, there are some capacity increases which are foreseen by the law. So these should also be solved. So for capacity increases, we calculated this capacity, and according to the short circuit or also the capacity of the system. Of course, we're not calculating this. We are calculating the total Turkey needs or the possibility of WPPs to be constructed. And of course, some of them, as the law foresees, and as you all know, the ones which are in operation at the moment and which have fields at the moment, the capacity increases will be given to the companies which demand this. And of course, a share from this capacity, a slice from this capacity will be allocated for capacity increases. So in terms of allocating capacity increases, we are still working on it. Of course, when there is one single application to the application holder, the necessary capacity increase will be given. But of course, within the framework of the law. So when we look at the province-based capacity increases, if there's more than one company demanding for capacity increase, then we will determine the method for this, and we will announce this from the beginning. So I mentioned the way we have come through, and now, if you let me, I would like to give the floor to the panelists according to the order on the agenda. So we will listen to their speeches. Then, at the end of the session, if you have any, we will receive your questions. Now, I would like to give the first floor to Mr. Barış. Please first introduce yourself, and then we will listen to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Distinguished Director General. My name is Barış Ara. I'm coming from the Republic of Turkey Energy Market Regulatory Authority, and in wind sector where we are right now, and I will be talking about also the investment opportunities. As you know, in terms of renewable energy, Turkey is a rich one, and in order to explain this, we usually use the table. And here, when we look at the wind energy here, 48,000 megawatt stays as a potential, and 20,000 is deemed to be an mid-efficient energy. Of course, turbine producers they have difficulty meeting our requirements, but for this 40,000 megawatts for class 2 and 3 fields it is defined for, and 11,000 megawatts if we consider that for 11,000 megawatt licensing has been granted. I think that the best regions have been already occupied. So you see the fields in Turkey in the northeast and northwest part of Turkey. And what I understand from this map is that the project developers should go to the field more, and they should carry out more measurements so that they should develop more regions. So this is one of the requirements. So when the applications are open, so with the new applications, the logic will become harder. So when I make the application to a Çeşme, if it doesn't work, then I have to apply for Hatay. So when we look at the facilities, establishments which are operated, this is as of 2011, end of 2011, and the total capacity rate here is wind energy, it's about 1.3%. And when we come to 2012, the 2,100 megawatts installed capacity we have, and this corresponds to 4%. So What is the contribution to production, the wind plants? In 2011, there was 4.7 billion kilowatts, and when we look at the whole world, Denmark, Germany, the extreme examples provide 25%, and Germany provides 10% contribution. In general, in average, on the world, it's 2.5, and so we are just close to the average. And in 2020, this is expected to be more than 2. And especially in the last 5 years, we certainly had a really significant development, and we also think that our country will be also successful in this respect. And this I took from TWEC's statistic book, and we see the establishments functioning, operating in a stable way. This is what we see here. And in taking this opportunity, I also would like to extend my thanks to TUREP because they provide such events. They make possible such events. And if we talk about the licenses, just before 1st of November 2007, the 3,527 megawatt license were granted, and 450 megawatt is about construction, and 2,089 megawatt is on operation. And as I just mentioned, on 1st of November 2007, the applications are distributed among 7,417, and 5,390 megawatt is granted for the competitors or in competition, but not all of them are licensed. Only 500 megawatt was licensed, so the last or the remaining part are stuck with the environmental impact assessment report. So for that reason, they are on standby. We know that we have the target for 2023 as 20,000 megawatt, and so far 11,000 megawatt has been already allocated. And in order to reach to the target in certain intervals by TEAS, the capacity will be announced, will be identified and announced, and afterwards the new applications will be received. So far, if I had to wrap up, in wind energy, and an investor who would like to be involved in wind energy sector there are three options in front. So one of them is that they can purchase the operation establishments, or they can just buy new license, or they can just wait for the new applications and they can make their applications for license. And the investor who would choose the last option, what is expecting him is that we are just seeing we see the summary of the licensing procedure here. By TEAS, the capacities will be announced by TEAS, and then the investors will develop their projects. And there is also a measurement obligation which was not present before, and then afterwards they will make a license application, and then afterwards the technical evaluation will be done. And if there is a single application, but I do not think that this will be a single application, and then afterwards there will come along the licensing, and with the multi-application there will be a tender, and then afterwards there will come along the licensing, and after having got the licenses, there comes along the constructions and permissions. As you know, 4,628 law for amendment for changing it, there's a draft. So if this is ratified by the Turkish Grand National Assembly, what will be changed in terms of the licenses? And the pre-licensing stage will be enacted, and the legal entities, in order to start their operations, in order to get the required permissions, this explains the permission or the time for the period they will acquire. So this should not exceed 24 months. So if the draft law is ratified and if it is enacted, so more regulations will come along. So practically there will be a contribution that the limited capacity will be allocated for the projects which could not be realized before. So for that reason, licenses licenses will mean the buildings which are ready to be constructed. So in the draft, there has been two regulations. As I just mentioned, one of them is the measurement obligation, and the second one is the change in local parts regulation, and 55% local contribution has been identified as a threshold. So as we know, $7.3 on top of this, in order to add so the remaining part should have been produced in abroad. So in order to benefit from this mechanism, how many applications have been received by the Energy Regulatory Authority? In 2012, there were about 22 projects, where there was 44 in the previous year. So what are the problems coming from the sector? There are many of them. I try to divide them into three parts. One of them is financing problems. In 2010, financing was quite easier. So before 2010, about 20% equity was asked or requested, but so there is also an interest rate increase. So for that reason, it hinders the project's realization. And the second problem is the high cost for the tenders. For example, for a project with 30 megawatt, 0.50 krush is identified to a contribution. So this and then it increases the period for realization. And when the situation is like this, 5 to 6 krush cents, how lira cent, people have problems or concerns in their minds, but I'm trying to be optimistic. While these costs are identified at the tenders, I think that the feasibility studies have been already accomplished. So while mention this, $7.3 is to be increased. For example, just in one of the meetings recently, there was the statement that this has to be increased to $14. Of course, this may be right because the conditions are difficult and the procedures are more costly. So when there's an incentive for $7.3 cent, the investors may give 0.5 or 0.6 lira cents, so whether they will be able to increase this amount or not, so we have to consider this. And lastly, there is also a problem about the permissions. So these are reflected from the sector, and to the extent we can, as the energy market regulatory authority, we're trying to find solutions, and about two technical interaction technical interaction procedures, we receive some problems. And here, civil aviation radars, certainly we receive some negative views from there. So as the Energy Market Regulatory Authority, we're trying to support the investor to the extent we can. So lastly, wind, how is the situation of wind on the world and as well as in Europe? So Europe has already reached 200 gigawatt, and so the first 10 gigawatt is obtained in 20 years, and the remaining would be obtained in 2013 as 90 gigawatt. So in Europe, it is expected to have a great amount of investment, and we hope that the majority will be in Turkey. Thank you very much for your attention.
Barış Bey'e
We are thankful to Mr. Barış for this valuable presentation. Now we will proceed with TWEC General Directorate. Ercüment Özdemirci will have the say. Thank you, distinguished Director General. On behalf of myself and TWEC, I would like to greet you all. So I am R&D manager in TWEC. First of all, I would like to talk about the Turkish power and transmission system. Then I will give information on wind and wind connection works and information. So as you all know, TWEC is the backbone of the transmission system of Turkey. So our main tasks is to expand and renovate the Turkish transmission system and to manage the Turkish electricity system and the electricity market, and also maintain and operate the Turkish transmission system and also international connection systems, and also to produce projects. So Turkey hasn't been developed yet, so it's a developing country, and also the power system is also changing. So for this reason, with 49,000 kilometers of transmission line, it has one of the biggest transmission lines of Europe, and it is in need of a powerful electricity transmission line. So for this reason, every year, new 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers should be added to our system. So in 10 years, even if we have now 50,000 kilometers, in the next 10 years we are in need of additional 15,000 kilometers. The wind investors will know this. In your connections, when you're building 20, 30 kilometers of lines, you have very difficulties. But as TWEC, we are trying to build new 15,000 kilometers of transmission lines. So this is a very hard work. So when we look at our installed capacity, as you see on the slide, in the year 2012, there is a new capacity of 3,000 megawatts. And the Turkish system, without having a supply demand, there should be an additional 3,000 megawatts every year annually. So when we look at our installed capacity, it is 55,000 megawatts, and our plant is 39,000 megawatts. So when we look at the share of wind, it is at about 4% in terms of installed capacity. And again, when we look to this perspective production base, so when we look at 2010-11 data, you see the wind production for these years. And again, of course, with Turkish transmission system, of course, we should think Turkish power system together. So our main duty is to our consumers or to our producers to operate the system without any reserve problems at any frequency. So in lots of production plants, there are some services to be met by TWEC. So one of the most important projects that TWEC carry out is the integration of Turkish transmission system with European transmission system. So the technical study started in 2005, and when we come to 2010, with ENSOI, on the 18th of September 2010, we started to work in parallel, and up until now, we are still having some experimental works. With these parallel works, there's a decrease in our primary reserves at the rate of 500 megawatts. So we hope that this experimental process will be accomplished in a successful way, and then we will have a stable connection to the European system. And again, when we look at our interconnection lines, Of course, there are different frequency levels here and voltage levels here. So when we look at our ongoing projects in Georgia, we have a transmission line of 380 megawatts. This is being experimented at the moment, and it will be back-to-back. So in Georgia, in Batum, there's a back-to-back station, and asynchronized connection will be ensured via this back-to-back connection, and as a result of this, it will be controlled mutually, and power transfer will be ensured. And yesterday, Ahmet Ocak also told about this in his presentation. There is a large potential of projects. So when we look at the feasible projects and carried out projects, we have a project stock which is not in parallel to this. When we look at in total for natural gas, for import coal, wind and hydroelectric projects, when we look at the total, this is 92 megawatts, and of course we should think about this. So we should elaborate this picture. And when we come to the evaluations of WPPs, as you all know, before 1st of November applications, there was an allocated capacity. So this was about 3,758.4 megawatts, and then the capacities were determined, and they were individually licensed, and as a result of the competition, this megawatt was determined as 5,300, and then we came up with 11,000 megawatts, and now 2,000 of them is being operated. And in terms of wind investors, the biggest advantage of our country is that the installed capacity of our country compared to the other conventional power plants, it is growing. And also the other conventional power plants are also in the system. So for this reason, in connection to the wind power plants, there's an advantage. So for this reason, up until 2023, we're talking about a 20,000 megawatt capacity. So this is coming out of the projections, future projections, and also detailed prospective works. And when we look at the network integration of the wind power plants, so the starting point is 1st of November 2007. So before this, there were some individual applications, and they were being individually evaluated regarding a single criterion, and then they were being licensed. But after 1st of November 2007, as you all know, there was a chaotic environment. And it took 4 years for us to overcome this chaotic environment. And after this multiple connection applications, we also worked on how to solve this intervening and intersecting applications, and we have carried out some competitions, and then we have come to the final point. And of course, in terms of network integration, this process is being composed of 3 processes. The first process is what is the total capacity which can be connected to the national connection. So what is the connectable capacity to the national connection? So here, frequency reserves are very important. And the second question is, what is the regional connectable capacity? Again, here, load flow analysis is very important, and also interregional energy quality, and also the additional investments should be evaluated here. And lastly, at bara basis, the users connected to the same bara, the negative impacts or the minimizing the negative impacts. So these are being evaluated. And of course, when we look at the regional connectable capacity, the load flow is very important. And again, interregional energy flow differences should be evaluated, and the impact of these should be evaluated. And also, the new connection lines, the connection strengthenings should be put forward through these studies. And again, to determine the country capacity, total capacity, of course, there are different approaches, but of course this is varying according to the wind characteristics of that country and also the energy characteristics of that country. But of course, there are some basic principles, and the minimum system demand can be 1/3, or the maximum system demand can be 25%. And we estimate for 2013, 18 megawatts. But after the crisis, financial crisis, these foreseeings it was decreased. Now we estimate 46,000 megawatts for 2013. So this 25% maximum system demand make us determine the figure of 11,000 megawatts. So the capacity was determined accordingly, and then at transformer basis, at also bar basis, we evaluated and identified the WPP capacities. And here you see the weekly productions. So it is varying from 0 to 100, and this variance, the impact should be minimum for the other system users. And also in terms of frequency and voltage decisiveness, the necessary studies should be carried out. So about the connectable capacity, the necessary data should be put forward. So as TWEC, in terms of consumption, in terms of production, we have to provide high quality electricity services. And a colleague from EMRA, Energy Market Regulatory Authority, told about this. So how will we evaluate the application process from now on? And of course, the WPP connectable capacities will be declared, and then there will be applications for licenses, and if there are multiple or individual licenses, there will be competitions. And after this application, the connection agreement will be approved, and also system usage agreement will follow this process. As you all know, for 1,500 megawatt power, we have determined this via competitions. So there were 13 competitions here. And then in 87 transformers, 147 companies competed for this capacity. So when we look at the price ranges, there is a 40% of projects. This was between 0 to 0.1 piastre or lira cent contribution. So this makes us happy because as TWEC, we of course do not say that we are happy because we have these contributions. This is a legal thing. So this is a selection criteria for the projects. So 9% of the projects gave over 5 piastre or lira cent offer. And I told about it before. As of today, the allocated capacity is 11,000 megawatts with the ones in operation. Of course, after they are activated, there will be some difficulties, possible difficulties, and what are we doing to solve them, also what will we do to solve them. So of course voltage control issue will be more important, and with wind changes to meet supply and demand, the secondary reserves will be more important, and the amount of secondary reserves should be increased. So this is very important. And also in terms of European connection, the load flow of the lines will be more important. So this big wind capacity should be planned in a secure way and in a non-problematic way. So for this reason, the most important, the most effective factor is to measure the wind in a very good way, and the data information should be given to the investor, the operator, timely, and there should be a good estimation system. So this estimation system is being successfully accomplished via a project between us and TÜBİTAK. So these are very important information, and these data will be also provided to TEAŞ, our institution, and then we will have better measurable and better estimated system, and then we will overcome most of the problems, possible problems, by this way. And after now, of course, capacity works will be going on till the end of this year. And when we look at the general system capacity of Turkey, the principles and the works are definite. The province-based capacities will be declared, and as a result of these capacities, this information which are made public, the new license applications will be taken. And thank you for your attention. We extend our thanks to Mr. Ercüment for his presentation. And now we will go on with Ms. Şule Erkoç. Yes, the floor is yours.
Distinguished Chairman, thank you very much. Distinguished participants, welcome. Thank you very much for your valuable contributions. In such congresses, after the minister departs, there is usually low participation, but I see that you're still interested. So for that reason, I also would like to thank for your participation. I'm representing Turkish Wind Energy Association, and we will be talking about the WEPP development and new licensing. I would like to give some information about that. In many of the speeches, since they were released, published, Turkish wind energy potential, there are many figures which have been identified. For example, REPA, for example, has prepared such figures, and still it's a reliable resource. For today, I will set on the way from this resource, but with a more conservative perspective, I will show you how high wind energy potential Turkey has. We know that in the regions where there may be investment on wind energy, we have an agreement that the north, the west part, and northern west, and in the eastern parts of Mediterranean, and also in some of the parts in regions in the Anatolia, there may be some investment. If we bring some limitations, what these limitations may be, in order to find the wind, we should not go high. We should not have high altitudes in Turkey. So if we look at the statistics reports in TÜREP related to turbines, the hub height is about 80 meters. So if we consider this, and 6.5 per seconds, if we go to this figure, the investments are not much feasible. So we have to seek for 6.15 meter per second wind speed, and also per kilometers 8 megawatt establishment is required, and this region's 55%, if it is appropriate for establishment, then we can see that Turkey has got a 30 gigawatt technical capacity, and this is not to show this number, which stood out to be 45 gigawatt. It is to show that we have a high capacity at 30 gigawatts. And in parallel to the potential we have, what is the current status? These figures that I will be showing you right now are already in your Congress backs in the reports, and these have been taken from that Congress books. And in yesterday's speeches, and as well as in today's panelist speeches, you have already seen these figures, and you please take these figures because these are rather current and updated figures, and you see that the installed capacity is 2,041 and the one under construction is 452, and the existing license capacity is 6,242 with 170 new licensing and with 35 appropriate one, we will have 11 gigawatt. So, in parallel all to these, Turkey officially in its energy policy, the lawmakers have already put some targets. So, in order to find out this, we have to look at two documents. It is one of this document belongs to the Ministry of Energy, and it points out that for 2015. There is an installed capacity for 10 gigawatt, and in the electric energy market and supply security safety strategy document, we have the renewable energy production share is 30%, and we see that there is a project stock is very serious, but still in terms of development of projects, we see that Turkey has a status of producing serious projects, and the wind energy realization and use of country resources in the accurate way. Certainly there are very, very serious targets, and we are certainly focusing on this. And within the scope of this, when we look at how speedy we go, unfortunately we cannot proceed, we cannot progress at the expected speed. 2023, 20 gigawatt is not something impossible, but it seems to be rather difficult. So in the new applications, I think lawmakers, public are aware and should be aware that the uncontrolled development would not be beneficial in the long term. So in the new applications, there should be some limitations and some sanctions are brought with. And I will be also sharing with you this as well. And before we go with the new responsibilities, I would like to talk about the development process of WEPP development centers. So when we make a comparison with other power plants, actually the wind energy power plants are rather easily constructed. So of course I say so, but if there is no good planning and good strategy, good feasibility, then we would certainly get a better result. But we can just divide this under 5 phases: the project development, pre-construction, and maintenance and construction, and guarantee, post-guarantee, or cooperation, sorry. So just in order to develop your project, the wind energy should be scrutinized. So you have to undertake right feasibilities, and also when you confront and come across with the financiers, the measurements have to be done, and these are called bankable measurements. So the project that will be executed in the region, these regions should have right configurations at the right altitudes with the right team. So it means that when there's a wind in some place, it doesn't mean that you can easily construct a wind plant there, power plant there. We have to ask whether you will be able to get a permission to construct this wind power plant there. And also, there might be a problem of land property issue there, and if you resolve that problem, and you also have to care for the settlement issues there, and accordingly you have to make your calculations, and turbine options and bankable options have to be identified, and just afterwards you go for the pre-construction period, and during that time 60% of the cost would go for turbine production, and of course turbine tender process would take much of your time. This is one of the most time-consuming period, and then there comes along the construction, electricity, plannings control, and afterwards there comes along the infrastructure part, and project financing comes along. And among them, of course, the administrative processes would also continue, like, for example, environmental impact assessment reports and so on and so forth, and then the construction of the building, and afterwards the operation. So this is the process, how it goes. So this is, as you would see on this summary, related to key criteria. I would like to give you a list, for example, wind speed and energy estimation. If you want to develop a project in somewhere, for example, you certainly have to know whether there's wind or not. If there is wind or not, then we have to seek for what kind of environmental and administrative limitations, and what is the land property.
Bilmeniz gerekiyor. Santral yerleşim planı dizaynınızı.
So land property, and then afterwards you have to seek for the power plant settlement planning and designing, of course. But sometimes we already discussed some of the negativities, but we know that compared to some other implementations in other countries, in our country we do not have to go for some investigations. So licenses are already announced by TWEC, and capacities are also announced. So when we are granted with a license, it means that it gives us the right to be affiliated with that capacity to the related region. And also we have to consider for the land transportation, and also we have to go for the financial evaluation. So I want to actually connect all these points to one point. This is the new regulations. In developing a wind energy process, what kind of loads we come across with as investors. In new applications for licenses, for example, in March 2012, the last final revision of communique for measurement has been released. So the condition is that it should be in 1 year, and minimum 60-meter height is required. And as well, for technical control to be carried out, this is referred to the Turkish Meteorological Institute, State Institute. So I just want to elaborate on this a bit more, because personally, when this communique was released and published, as a person who provides technical consultancy, I would like to say that just because of, due to many reasons, some various reasons, because of the errors in the measurements, I know that many misleading and problematic results occurred. So for that reason, For that reason, we know that for measurement, at least for a wind energy power plant, we have to carry out our investigations at least for 1 year. So for that reason, in this context, Turkish State Meteorological Institute, we already visited their offices and we tried to find references from there. But so far, for agricultural purposes, informative actions were taken by the Turkish Meteorological Institute, State Institute. So, for example, in their gardens, Turkish State Meteorological Institute's gardens, such measurements were made for wind. So, actually, just I'm talking about while wind energy can be used or not. So, in 2012, July, the Turkish State Meteorological Service released a communique for wind energy and solar energy. I think this will certainly need some new regulations, and I think that these new issues will find its place in the communique. But I see that the international standards are well examined, and how wind observations should be, measurements should be, and data without being exposed to manual impact, how these should be submitted to themselves without being exposed to any manual impact. These have been all included in that communique. So, of course, there will be certainly some errors and problems in deficiencies in such new implementations, but in time these will be covered. But I have to talk about another new change. You know that energy market law has been already open for signature, but I don't know whether it has been started to be discussed at the assembly or not. But the many changes are foreseen related to competition, distributors, and licenses. And in new applications certainly will be affected by this new law. So what I would like to give information about this. A new concept like pre-license is discussed in this new change. It is not important what it is called, but what it's clear is that the lawmaker foresees that if a project if you want to develop a wind energy project, you first have to have your measurement and you have to apply to us. And after following the application, I will give you an provisional permission. And in meantime, you will get the documents and permissions. And regarding land property, there may be asked other documents may also be required, and feasibility should be researched. So this is what it means. This is what pre-licensing means. So it brings, of course, a load. And in the same draft, so the measurement arrangement is also required, carried out at least for 3 months. And also, we have to have a contribution share. You know that previously the tenderers would give a share for 1 megawatt. So, in a serious way, financial evaluation should be carried out in the serious way. And when you go into the tender, I will get the share that you have committed from you. So if we to go back to the key criteria in both the new energy market law, draft law, it shows that these key criteria should be ensured by the investors. So wind speed, energy estimation, environmental and administrative limitations, or power plant settlement plan and designing should be provided. So in the upcoming period, if we receive some other limitations related to power plant settlement plan, we will see this criteria as a sanction as well. So apart from all regulations, when we consider all the factors that affect the wind energy power plant establishment, it is said that the investor should do her homework in the best way, the best. And of course, there are some obscure points, but this is due to not having announced the transformers capacities, and the licenses dates are not announced yet. And in the licensing, what will be required, these are not detailed yet. So for that reason, apart from the rights granted, certainly if they bring some responsibilities, we consider that in license applications, these will continue as well. And if we look at from the perspective of the investor, of course, previously it was quite easier, and the investor did not have any responsibility before. And after the license has been granted, the work would start, and of course there would come along the problems as well. But now, first of all, investor has to know at first instance what to do, and if the people do know what they want to do, and if they work with the right person, and if you are not stuck with the wrong people, and if they make a good analysis and good feasibility, then there is nothing to be reserved. So for that reason, although these new implementations, applications do not speed up the process, this will certainly benefit the investors. But in this respect, the investors also have responsibilities. It is not, I should not say that it is difficult, but it is the time period that the investors should work in a good way, in a neat and accurate way. So in this respect, I wish luck to all the related parties and investors. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sayın Şule Erkoç'a sunumda.
We thank Ms. Şule Erkoç for her presentation. Now we will proceed with Mr. Mustafa Çalışkan. Yes, the floor is yours. Deputy General Director, first of all, I would like to greet you all on behalf of myself and my institution. My name is Mustafa Çalışkan. I am the former General Director of Renewable Energy. So in the regulation which determined the resource areas for WPPs and for license applications, technical evaluation, I took part. So together with our colleagues, we worked diligently, and we were in that team which prepared that regulation. So today I will talk about to construct a facility for wind. How can you evaluate your resource areas, source areas, and then for the technical evaluation of your license application, what kind of information is necessary? So I will give brief information about this. So first of all, to have a facility based on wind energy, of course, there is not just need for high wind potential. The country you will invest, its strategy, your company's targets, the market structure, organizational structure, and the legislation of that country, financial situation and access to finance, and also the technology types you will use and how you will provide these technology types. So they are all is a whole. So having potential fields or not is not having a meaning here. Of course, all these circles, when these are all sufficient, then when also there's a high wind potential, how can we find such an area? So within this scope, there are lots of studies. One of them is carried out by our General Directorate as of the end of 2006. So this is the Wind Energy Potential Atlas or map. So this is known by everybody. So because when we look, this makes the high wind energy areas visible. So this map shows you a point which is 200 square meters. There is wind source information for this, so the speed, intensity, statistics. So all this information is provided for every square. So here, when we look at the statistical analysis, so we came up with such a picture as you see on the slide, the wind energy potential of Turkey. And generally it is set 48,000 or 50,000 megawatts. But under which conditions this will be 48 or 50,000? This is not set. So this is a general acceptance. So at the 50-meter elevation, and when the wind speed is more than 6.5 or 7, so these are the usable parts. And also this is accepted that you are constructing 5 megawatt power plants for each square. So for this reason, technology of course is not static, it's dynamic, it is developing. And when we say 48,000 megawatt, so it was in the end of 2006, so now technology developed a lot. So when we say 7 meter per second, the 6 or 6.5 meter per second areas are also feasible, became feasible. If we accept that we have built 5 megawatt power plant for each of these squares, then we came up with 131,000 megawatts. But what is the part that can be evaluated? Of course, this is related with the technical potential of your country. And here, how can we determine the fields? Of course, when you establish a facility, you should be connected to the transmission lines. So where are the transmission lines? So, for example, there's no meaning of identifying remote areas from these transmission lines. Again, here you see the transformer centers, so you should have known all these. And again, you technically, in parallel to the development of turbine technologies, so the tower heights and also the wing diameters are increasing. So there are 120 meter diameter wings, so their transformation and their installation will be problematic. So for this reason, the fields which have more than 20% slope are not chosen. So you see these areas on the map. And again, when the sea level is above 1,500 meters, so these fields are not again chosen because the airspace is being narrowed, and then of course it can be installed, it can be established. But first of all, the prioritized areas will be the ones under 1,500 meters above sea level. So in terms of settlement areas, we want to keep away from settlement areas, so you see the settlement areas on the screen. And again, of course, in terms of our national legislation and in terms of the other international agreements, which we are party, there are some fields that should be protected. For example, national parks, special environmental protection areas, nature parks, and nature preservation parks. So olive tree fields, because in olive fields we can invest, but it's a problematic process. So as far as possible, we have to keep away from these fields. Again, in terms of, we have forests, we have, for example, protected forests, so you have to have permit for these areas, and it is very problematic, it's very difficult. And also wetlands, we have to be away from wetlands. And again, everybody knows this as a radar problem. So with aviation auxiliary devices, the systems are, by these devices, the systems are affected negatively. So first of all, the the Office of General Command, and also the TWEC, and also National Intelligence Office intervened into this issue, and now Civil Aviation Association, also State Airports Enterprise, is also in this issue. So the follow-up systems are being negatively impacted, they say. So for this reason, when determining a project area, of course we should be away from these areas. And again, so there are some, as you see, if we put them all together, you see the non-usable areas. And again, of course, this is a map of Turkish wind potential. So when we combine these both maps, so these are the investable areas. So within these areas, there are some licensed projects based on wind energy or the other resources. So you do not see these WPPs or PPs on this map. Of course, within a licensed project field, you may not be aware of this. You may be measuring also, but for license application, you may have prepared the necessary documents. So for this reason, we have to be careful. So the transportation possibilities are also very important to these areas. And again, there's another issue on the agenda. We have to be away from oil and also natural gas pipelines. So BOTAŞ has defined this distance, and some licensed projects demanded turbine coordinate change from our general directorate. For example, BOTAŞ demands that some of the turbines should be taken away from the pipeline. So for this reason, I have put this here. And also, geologic structure is very important for every type of investment. So your facility, of course, for example, you have a 100-meter tower, and the geologic base reports, the surface reports are also very important. So here we have macro scale project areas. So we have to be local, of course, here. And to give as an example, I have this view here. For example, transformer centers, 1, 2, 3 transformer centers and hubs. And here there are some usable and high potential fields. So you have to determine these fields. And again, as an example, I have this here. For example, this is an unusable area. So we have again a scaled map here. So these are 5,000 sheets, and in white parts you can have projects. This means, so this is an office work, this is a bureau work. So for this reason, this shouldn't be left here. We should go to the field. There should be on the spot checks, and also the local governments and people should be interviewed. And when you go to the field, of course, you should be sure that there is wind. And in terms of field visits, for example, there are some indicators. So you should look for some visual indicators, for example, biological, geographical, geological, topographical, social, and cultural indicators are very important. So, for example, some plants, for example, are developing under wind regime better. So you should know this, for example. So you go to some X hill, for example. The villagers, for example, named that hill as Wind Hill, Windy Hill, for example. So you should care for this. And for the plant cover is very important here. The vegetation cover is very important signal here to decide. And again, there are some indexes used in the literature. So here you can have some preliminary ideas for the area. For example, you have determined an area, and this is a usable area, let's say. And again, there are some on-the-spot field visits, and you say that there is a wind. You have the map information. You say that it is possible, it is feasible, but it is not sufficient. So in terms of our legislation, even if we do not have a legislation, so if a public body, for example, if they do not ask for a measurement, you have to carry out a measurement in a standard way. And there should be a long-term energy aiming wind measurement should be carried out, so that in every phase, these data will be serving you. And the determination and also choice of measurement area and the surface structure of that area. And during the field visits, for example, how many turbines can be installed? So what is the wind direction of this area? So in terms of, for example, wind turbine installation, is there enough area, and can we have permits for this area? So there should be a checklist for all these questions, and you should answer these questions. For example, there is no problems. You have taken the investment decision, and you should first start with measurement. The measurement area, the most appropriate measurement area should be identified. We also witnessed this. For example, sometimes measurements take place on a piece that doesn't represent the area. For example, this is the most appropriate area for measurement, but sometimes there may be some measurements in very inappropriate parts. So for this reason, measurement point is very important for the decisions you will take. So because the decisions you will take will be based on the data. So why do we have to carry this out? So you should start with preliminary investigation, and up until the operation, in every step, the investor will take some decisions, and in all these decisions, of course, there should be reliable and long-term measurement data. So this will be very valuable and fruitful. Why? Because you should know the wind regime, and here there is an exemplary record is shown on the slide, and again. And what kind of a regime according to the hours? So what are the timely changes of wind, for example? And also the turbulence of the area should also be measured, and you will also use this data again. So what kind of wind turbine I will choose? Because every turbine cannot be appropriate for all areas and all wind types. So what kind of turbine should be chosen, and what should be the tower height, and what should be the size of the wind? So for this reason, again, you should here use the measurement data. For example, there's an X coordinate, and there's a wind measurement there, and reliable tests carried out here on this place. So what does it mean? Yes, I know the high potential, and I can determine the high potential areas of this points of this area. So how can I orient and install my turbines here? You can know this. For example, what kind of turbine should be chosen, and how much energy these turbines will produce. So there's an exemplary, again, picture here. Here, I think, 8 wind turbines here. So their optimum places, locations, have been determined, and optimum type has been chosen. Again, you need these data for economic analysis work studies. So what are the economic investment costs? So how much can I earn, and how much will I spend? So you again determine this according to your measurements, and also in terms of capacity increase amount. So to what extent this capacity increase can take place, and what should be the location of the wind turbines if there is to be a capacity increase, and also what should be the contribution payments. For example, over 5 piastres or lira cents, for example, is there an indicator for this? So is there an indicator coming out of the measurement? So these are all the questions to be answered. So in terms of in terms of monitoring and evaluation, of course, after the technical evaluation, this report is sent to EMRA, so ministry is not done here. So within this process, if there is a turbine coordinate change, the investor may ask for some changes. So, or the ministry can ask for some changes. So for this reason, General Directorate's view should be taken. So this process is still going on for licensed projects. And again, if there's a license application for a project, so when this comes to our General Directorate over EMRA, so of course the Annex 2 data of the regulation should be given by the investor fully, and also this should be sent to us by EMRA. And what we have experienced up until now is that in this sector, the experienced investors even do not know that they should prepare the data for Annex 2. For example, they do not insert the CD maps, and maps are, for example, are not appropriate, compliant with the coordinates. So there is a chaos here. So there's a problem here. So for this reason, in this presentation, I will talk about how it should be organized. So of course, first of all, the documents are checked for their sufficiency, and then the license application is evaluated firstly. So if there is if they lack of a document, for example, they are not evaluated, and then this power plant area is being determined, and then the power intensity is looked for if it is smaller than 0.6 megawatts per square kilometer or not. If it is, we do not evaluate it. For example, there is a two turbine application. So here you see the locations. So there is a 0 to 700 meter distance is asked from the investor. So the investor can choose this maximum. There can be a distance of 700 meters between the turbines, and there is a security band which is 300 meters, and all the edge points of these areas are being determined. And again, for example, the application can be for 4 megawatts. This is a 5 square kilometer area, and the power intensity is 0.8 megawatt per square kilometer. So this is an okay area. This application can be evaluated technically. And as I said before, so even experienced investors may have some problems with preparing these documents. For example, in terms of technical evaluation, or for example, if there is to be a change in the license, if there is a demand for this, first of all, you should give the general information, the identity information of company, and also license, application number, the name of the facility. So you should give the identity information of your company, and then you should give information for the turbines individually. So the coordinates, and the power, rotor heights, and also wing heights should be given by the investors. On the contrary, they are doing this in an uncareful way, and then the process becomes longer. Of course, the Shalt center information should be for, again, the area itself. And these information should be printed of course, when determining this power plant site, this is given in detail in our General Director's website. So first of all the points should be processed on the map, and of course these are being drawn, and the black parts are being determined, and then there is a security band of 300 meters, and what you see as red line is our power plant site. So they may be separate from each other, so the turbines may not be close, or they may be seriously distant from each other. Then we may come up with such agglomerations, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. And again, the dodecagons are being drawn for this. And again, here there is a cross section. And also for the distant agglomeration, there is another drawing. And again, here you see the power plant site. So the edge coordinates are being determined, and the related documents are being prepared. And if there is a license application, this is done to EMRA. And if there is a technical evaluation to be done, this should be sent to our general directorate. So in the coming process, of course, there is a project stroke licensed for 11,000 megawatts, and the 2,000 of it is being operated, and the other 8,000 megawatt is waiting for permits, but 300 megawatt of it is being projected. So there will be some demands for this. Please be careful about this, because the correspondence is taking very long time. For example, X coordinate is 6 digits in our legislation, but sometimes these coordinates are written in 7 or 8 digits. So for this reason, you should be more careful in preparing these documents. And in the coming process, of course, there will be some new capacities determined by TWEC, and there will be some license applications for these, and your project fields, your project areas should be healthily sound. It should be chosen in a sound way to overcome or to prevent some problems from the beginning. So at the local level, the related of course, this information is not owned by the ministry only, so you should go to the Ministry of Agriculture, you should go to the Ministry of Forestry, so there is an interministerial work. There should be an interministerial work for this reason, so I think this should be also taken into consideration, and thank you. So we would like to extend our thanks to Mustafa Çalışkan. So the last speech will be rendered by Mr. Müslüm Yiğit.
Teşekkür ederim Sayın Başkan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished participants, Mr. Chairman, I would like to welcome you, and I would like to extend my thanks, especially I would like to extend my thanks to TWEC for giving us this opportunity for informing the sector. And I also would like to thank Ms. Schule for her kind evaluations about my institution. My name is Müslüm Yiğit. I'm working in the Meteorological State Institution, Meteorological Service, in terms of automatic observation centers, stations. I have been working in this department since 10 years, and we have certainly a great experience in this area. When EMRA communique was released, implementation of this communique has been delegated to the Turkish State Meteorological Service, and we accepted this assignment, and we thought that we could overcome this assignment and we could tackle with this assignment. In July 2012, how this communique could be implemented and how the controls could be carried out. Accordingly, we released a communique. You know, this communique involves both measurement of wind and solar energy, and how this implementation be. The communique is rather complex here, confused, so I will just skip the parts related with solar energy. There are two annexes here. We have annexes containing the figures, and the ones with letters are the annexes released by the Turkish State Meteorological Service. First of all, I have to draw your attention to the transactions during the application. The one who considers to establish the station or plant should fill the Annex A, and they will be applying to us with this Annex A. And of course, this form has some annexes as well, and these also have to be filled. And after having received these applications, the controls will have been started. Among the annexes, there is one item, so there is an application. For the application, 3,000 Turkish lira have to be deposited, and this has to be deposited to the revolving fund of the Turkish State Meteorological Service. And if the establishments have to be done in the best way, in a careful way, so that if this is not done in a careful way, then the control would be required, and if the control is required, then an extra fee would occur. So for that reason, there should be a careful establishment to avoid this extra payment. And when we look at the establishment control, the installment control, just during this process, the companies should have a 5-meter sensitive GSM appliance device, and submitting the data to the Turkish State Meteorological Service. We had some concerns about this. We wanted that the data should not be manipulated by people or humans, so that we could receive from the Turkish State Meteorological Service, because our systems work likewise, and we thought that the market could also provide such an atmosphere, environment, but we had some problems in the sector, experienced some problems. Then we said that take the data into static IP, and from there you can submit us the data, but without playing with the data. You can just change a format, but you should not play with the quality of the data. This was completely prohibited, and this is what we said, and this is being implemented. And thank you very much for this sensitivity that is shown. And among the format of the data, there are two data groups. One of them is wind data, and the second one is the other data. In the wind data, we will get the data related to wind, and in the other ones we would have pressure and humidity as well as for the data. And on daily basis, data should be submitted on daily basis. For example, each 10 minutes data should be sent in a file as to constitute one day. And also we have to have the station number, because we also give you the station number in the stage of application. And also we have to have the data dated with the hyphens, and the data submission to MGM's Turkish State Meteorological Service, and we want them to have in a text file, as a text file. Some of the data could be missing, and to complete the missing data, we can allow you to complete them by 20%, up to 20%. And in the measurement final report, if there is more than 20% missing, then in the final report you will have a statement saying that you have more than 20% missing. So for that reason, you have to keep your data yourselves, and in a regular way, you have to log in to the website of Turkey State Meteorological Service with the password you will be given, and you have to follow your data accordingly this way. So this is a control transaction. The data that you send, submit, you will be responsible for the accuracy of the data and also the responsibility of submission. We do not have any responsibility in that. We only provide you with the IP, and you can just log in, and accordingly you can get your data. And once again, you are responsible for the accuracy of the data. We only have the responsibility to control that the establishment has been, or the facility has been established in the right way and accurate way, and we carry out the controls. So here you see the NXA. This is NXA, which is required during the stage of application for construction, for establishment, and here it is, and here we have the final report. So the general data are put onto this form. So you constitute and you prepare the measurement report, and you fill out this, and of course annexes of this form also have to be filled, and if you have got any drawbacks, you also have to point out these drawbacks as well. But this is rather, I just pass speedily here, but the most critical criticism was on this title. This is a wind measurement station control transactions or operations. What we care for is that what we want to share with you is that, and we are all exchanging our information on this issue. We are experts. We're experts on 10-meter high stakes. So for that reason, the stakes that you put up are rather unreachable for us. So we have some experiences on 10-meter stakes piles, and so for that these experiences should be implemented on your stakes, and we have already focused on this, and we also have received some constructive comments as well as some problematic and some unpleasant comments on as well. In all the sector, the ones who are experienced companies, we exchange our views with, and we ask, what do you care for, what kind of things you take into account, and apart from this, we also contacted with the international standard institutions, and we took their standards, and we looked at our implementations, and we looked at the applications in Turkey as well as the international implementations, and we tried to form the common standard. And in a wind measurement station, what kind of sense will there be? There will be a wind meter, on a meter, for example, and these are inevitable. And apart from this temperature, the weather temperature, and the pressure and humidity, these should be measured. These are the parameters. And the wind measurement stake, what kind of feature it should have, and this is an obligation coming from the communique. At least the height of the stake should be at least 60 meters. And it's possible that you can put up a higher stake. For example, this may be 100 meters high, but it may have a grid structure, or it may have a pipe structure. All the connections, all the arms, and additional materials, and all
Bu kadar para yatırıyorsunuz buraya.
lighting materials should be stainless, and also the stakes should be fixed on the ground with stretching wires. So there may be a chemical ancrage, for example, here. And in wind measurement station, as regards the security and safety of people as well as the properties, there should be hedges, protective hedges, and this was a demand coming from the sector. We have put down likewise, but when when it was implemented, we received many comments and criticism. And with the stretching wires, the a stake or a pile may occupy about 100 meters. And since this occupies such a big area, we received some comments or criticisms. But still, there is a question mark. Some of the places around the stakes are agricultural lands where there is crop going on, harvesting going on. So for that reason, in some lands, agricultural lands, or in airport areas, for example, our stakes, our piles put down. So for that reason, for 80-meter high piles, I cannot think of the result. So as I just mentioned, the height should be at least 6 meters. So it constitutes a kind of hazard and danger for the aircrafts. For that reason, we want a signal on the piles, and the measurement of the wind energy should be at 2 levels. These are coming from the communique. So the measurements should be at 30 meters as well as on the very top. You may also have measurements in between, and this is recommended because sometimes some freezing may occur on the sensors in between, and you cannot get data. So for that reason, you may get the data coming from on the top and 30 meters. And what we understand from wind energy is the direction and the power of wind. So at 30 meters, if there will be a measurement, there will be a measurement, and on the top of the pile, the direction and the speed of the wind will be measured. So when we talk about wind measurement, it's not only anemometer, we also have to have sensors as well. If we go into further detail, the anemometer should be installed on the axis of the pile. If you do this likewise, it would be much better. Why? Because this comes from the international implementations, and this is likewise in international implementations. And just in case of breaking down, it's possible that a second wind meter or anemometer can be, wind gauge can be installed. And related to pile arm, there are some values here. This is related. This is actually that there should not be any turbulence here. So pile arm implementations you see. So this is just an example. So you don't have any obligation here. You can use a longer arm, but please use as much as you can the shortest one. So the anemometer should be installed on the very top, and as mentioned at 30 meters. And in order not to have an impact of the turbulence of the wind gauge, then it is recommended that it should be installed between 1.5 and 2.5 meter under the anemometer. But we're just recommending these, of course. So in the wind gauge at the very top, in terms of any breaking down, if there is a speed meter will be installed, then it should be installed 1.5 meter down the top, the highest point. The second anemometer is required to be installed at 30 meter high from the second one, and as mentioned, the wind direction meter is, in order not to have it in the impact of the turbulence, then it should be installed 1.5 or 2.5 meters height. So when the wind direction is not identified, so at 50 meters the direction of the wind is not identified. This was not a great deficiency, but from our side, this was deemed to be a deficient installation. So the horizontal connection of the arms to the pile should be sound and should not be in a vertical way. It should not be horizontal. It should be horizontal, and it should avoid the shaking. So you see the installation at 30 meters and general installation and establishment. Of course, this doesn't mean that all these have to be fulfilled fully. These are just in a way of recommendation. You obey these or not. But if you establish these or put up these piles in another way, these may cause problems. So
Geldi. Biz
once again, the Thunderbolt. As regards the Thunderbolt and also the earthing, we also received some problems, some criticisms, or grounding. We had some problems. What the comments were that since the land were rocky, the lands are rocky, so for that reason it's not possible to reach or catch the required or recommended measures. So for that reason, 10-10 grounding should be ensured. So this is an obligation, but how you will do this, this is just a recommendation. So you see the recommendations here.
en üst seviyesi parametrede en az 2 santim yukarı çıkacak. Yani
So it is the grounding. The sensor should be secured at an angle of 60 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees, sorry, and also it should be made of raw copper, and it should be installed at 50 meters, and this catching end should be tied to the grounding device, and all these grounding or stick. So we also recommend you that you ensure equal potential. So the grounding should not cause any
Evet, sensörler, rüzgar, hız,
problems. So the sensors, speed and direction meters.
61400
We would desire that we could write down the standard, but we could not write this standard due to the applications. So we had difficulty in the description of the sensors. So the sensors used here are different or show difference from the meteorological service sensors. But in wind energy sensors are named as first class, and they are accurate compared to our sensors. And these sensors can be identified, can be described here. These should be with
anemometreleri seçmeniz tavsiye edilir. Yani burada İtalya olarak yazmak zorunda kaldık. Çünkü tebliğde yer almıyor bu. Zorunlu yüksekliklerde first class veya bir üstü kullanabilirsiniz. Kullanmanız öneriliyor.
so it should be a certain type of types.
Tahminlerinizde
And in your energy estimations, if you have inaccurate devices, then you would certainly have errors. So we recommend that you should use the accurate sensors.
rüzgar yön ölçer. Rüzgar yön ölçerleri
So wind direction meters, they should be adjusted in the way of the magnetic north.
rüzgar yön sensörü tanımlanmalıdır.
So we have said that the wind direction meters should be used, but coming from the sector, 80-meter piles put up. If we remove the sensors, then we should have an offset value, because for a 10-meter stake we do not have offset value. What is the calibration? We use that, and not any correction is recommended. So the bucket type should be made with the for the ones over 60 meters, you have to use the bucket type, and add in the intervals or in the between, you can use a propeller type, or you can use ultrasonic type, or combined types. But in the parts where there's an obligation of measurement, we recommend you use first-class sensors, and usually to be a bucket type. And the investors who know this at all levels, they use first class. And other sensors, we call these secondary sensors. So we're talking about the pressure, temperature, and humidity sensors. And actually, the standards identified by the meteorological services seem to be luxurious. Sometimes thresholds do not meet with each other. They're not equal. So accordingly, we can accept the values provided by the investors. So data collection unit, data logger. We know that the signals are produced by the sensors, so for that reason we do have to have data loggers. And in order to register these, data loggers are used. With data logger, to the extent it has to be a logger that would keep the data for 1 year at least. So you should know your logger well, because the peak flows, in order for your peak flow, in order the loggers not to be affected by the peak flows, you should have a protection system. So cabling, you have to care for the cabling. Where does the sensor come from, where it is connected. So there should be a kind of order in the cables or cabling, and we want you to obey these recommendations. And it is very important, all related to all sensors, calibration certificates, brochures, and also panoramic establishment photographs should be annexed, should be enclosed to the report. And in the wind measurement is within the responsibility of the investor, and in case there is a wind measurement station at the wind measurement station, the third persons are affected, then this is within the responsibility of the investor or the so for that reason we have to have at least 3 folds of distance in order to ensure the security safety. So when we look at this, so these are the sensor features that is used by the meteorological service. And as mentioned before, the wind sensors are better than what we use in the meteorological service. So for that reason, we would like to pay attention to this issue very well. So you see some of the examples of the putting up and installations. You see the wind energy installation or wind energy plant establishments here. So these are real examples. So in our communique, we think it has already it's the right communique for this reason. So this is one of the last examples of the one of the establishments or installations. I'm just skipping the solar part. So measurement data registry format. I want to show you this as an example. At a certain level, if there is no sensor, then you have to have it written as minus 8888, and if there's a sensor is run as a error, then it should write as minus 9999. This is the format of the wind measurements. So we have the date, we have the altitude for measurements, and then we have the parameter name. And then we also have the explanations as well as the order of the registration. And at each level, this is required. If you have a measurement at the highest level, you have to have it as well. So this is the format how we want it. So you have to separate the data with the punctuation. So, for example, this is one of the data received from one of the stations from the power plants. So, wind, solar data completing or completion format. If you have got any missing information, then the missing data, then you have to fill this and you have to take it to the meteorological service. And if your missing data is more than 20%, then in the information document this will be stated, and then it will certainly hinder you getting a license. As regards the application filling, you have to write down the station number, and the measurement station should be indicated, and station location information, and we have to have UTM coordinates, and also related to all the devices present should be checked, and there should be the calibration certificates documents. You may not give the original all the calibrations because you may use them at the phase of making your application for the license. You can just give the photocopies of the calibration documents. And to get the permission for measurement on the field, you have to provide the photocopy that is notarized, and also you have to have you have to deposit the application fee. So for the report for that will go to EMRA for the establishment of the solar and wind measurement station, it is just like in the Annex 1 and 3. So we have the annexes for establishment of the report. So these are very important, related to the devices, appliances used, the producer, company, type, serial number, and also the sensor that you install into the station power plant, the serial numbers that you provide us with the sensor, or that you provide for the sensors, they should be in line with each other. The ones that you use on the site should be matching with the information that you provide us. Thank you very much. I would like to add that we sometimes come across with some problems during application phase. It's related to, for example, with location or place permissions, location permissions. You have to care for the agreements for the places. The agreements should be done through notarization, especially, for example, muhtars coming from ranges and taking permissions from MERA muhtars, these are not valid. When you get the permission for the locations or the places, please state with a sentence that how long you have rented the place and please provide the sheet and parcel. You please indicate the parcel and sheet of the location in the permission document. And certificates, these certificates should be paid attention. And another thing is that when establishment report is provided, there's an invoice there. And this invoice is a station power plant invoice. If you have made the plant established by another person, then you have to have the invoice related to that party. And if you have rented it, then you have to put the agreement, rent agreement. And station establishment installment photographs would be really beneficial during phase of application. Please prepare the application files in two copies, and we want the information, we keep the information confidential. So for that reason, when we keep one of the files in our institution, we keep it confidential. The second copy would be with you. And just during application period stage, you are required to provide a petition saying that I have established my plant here. And also, when you make an application, there is a minute written. You are also given a number of the station, and this station number should be registered. So this registration, station number should be in the data. And after having the signature, the station control minutes are signed on the site. The meteorological service static IP has to be provided to the state meteorological service, and this will ensure the submission of your data to the state meteorological service. And accordingly, there will be a password, there will be a username and the password. And by using this username and password, you can follow your application on the web, and also the data sent by your station or plant may be followed. And just related to this, an interface study is going on, so it's about to be accomplished. So right now, as regards the information we have got, in total we have 292 applications. As regards the measurements, this is 18 of them are wind measurements. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have got any questions, I would like to have them. We also thank you very much to Mr. Müslüm. I don't want to interview him because sometimes very few errors or deficiencies could cause great losses. So for that reason, we have to care for this. You have just listened to our all speakers. I deem it appropriate to recall this. They were very valuable presentations, really. Such a large investment from time to time is neglected, but in the midway, we sometimes say that we should have done this also. So we have remembered all these points here, this neglected point. So for this reason, this is the most important result of this session. So from the presentations of our panelists, we have learned that our installed capacity is about 2,100 megawatts. So as of 2011, this provided 4.7 billion kilowatt hour energy, and the world average is at about 2.5%. So before 1st of November 2007 and after 1st of November 2007, regarding the applications, I think we have got lots of details at the moment. And Europe in 23
years, they reached 100 gigawatts. So for this reason, we have a long way to go in front of us up until 2023. So with such conferences, meetings, we will make it less difficult by sharing information. And again, from what Ms. Schule said, we have learned that in Turkey there's a potential of 30 gigawatts of wind energy. But in terms of realizing this, there are lots of criteria are influential. He said wind speed, energy estimations, land property, power plant location plans, connections, financial evaluation. So these are all influential for this potential. And in our sector, in the coming period, of course, according to the law, the new version of this law is being discussed in the parliament, so there will be some new regulations coming out of this, and the measurements will be done through 60-meter piles. And again, in terms of this changing conditions, megawatt contribution per megawatt competition will be carried out to determine the contributions. And when we look at Mustafa Çalışkan's presentation, with 6 or 6.5 meter speed, the potential in Turkey can be estimated as 100,000 megawatts, but of course, because of the variance, this is decreased to 48,000 megawatts, and the technically compliant part amount is 30,000 megawatts. Of course, to name it as decreasing may not be a right word to choose, but of course there are some factors influencing all these identifications. And also Mr. Yiğit told about the communique about wind energy, and of course we should always take this into consideration. Sometimes we say that we apply, but in that application there may be lots of lacking points. So for this reason, this is causing the process start from the scratch. So for this reason, I would like to extend my thanks to all the panelists for their presentation. There's a delay in the program, but I think that the crowd is still listening to us. So during the Q&A part, we will need some time. So for this reason, please first tell the addressee of your questions, and please do not have multiple questions. If you have any, we can answer your questions. I have a question to Mr. Muslim. So Meteorology General Directorate collect data from investors. So in terms of reliable data and protecting data, is there investment? This is my first question. The second question is, in terms of transformer centers and the application date, if will they be announced this year? So you can answer the first part, Mr. Muslim. So data reliability is very important. Security is very important. Your application documents are not let out. So your application file should be 2 copies, and the confidentiality of your data is very important. And of course, we are preparing an internet interface, and by a password, by a code, you will just see your own data. You will not see the other investors' data. So of course, this data will not be sold to any other parties. So at this time, this is so, but I don't know, in the timing there may be a political development and this may change. But this is the situation at the moment. So the second question is asked to the whole, only if we had an automatic questionnaire system here so that we could have answered this question wholly. Of course, we are working on it, and these capacities will be announced this year. We hope that, and the general director also have information about this. Maybe to make an addition related to new capacities. When I said before in the beginning of the session, so this study has nearly been accomplished. So with EMRA, we are discussing the details of, we will discuss the details of the issue related to capacity increases and behaviors and the way we will follow. And especially we will look at the time period which will be covered by the capacity. So we are working on it. So I am head of such a work, so we have 2 months in this year. I think we will accomplish this in this year. It should be accomplished so that you, valuable investors, since 10 you have seen all the stages that you should fulfill, so you should start these phases immediately. Because TWEC gave the capacity, 3 months later we will install these turbines and the turbines will be rotating. So this is not the case. So from which perspective you look, the announcement of the capacity and capacity allocation will follow it, and then the licensing will come, permits will be issued. So in the recent times, as the panelists say, especially the air navigation systems and about radar, the interaction permits cannot be easily taken. So this covers 3 years. So after the capacity announcement, especially you should look at the fluctuations during the construction also, facility establishment. So this will cover 3 to 4 years after capacity announcement. And now we have 2100 megawatt installed capacity. So for this reason we have this because of this process, because in the beginning we made ourselves go into trouble as the public sector. Because there are some uncertain processes which cannot be defined by the private sector and also legislation, and there were less capacity announced and there was more than that. So we say that 2007 is the starting point, but we should go back to 3 to 2 years before 2007. So in 7 years we came to this point, but in the coming period, of course, we will not waste such time, spend such time, so much time. So in the coming period, we hope that there will be an accelerated investment process. In terms of power, maybe this is hidden in a detail in my speech. So the capacity to be announced should cover a certain period of time, and in terms of this period of time we should agree with EMRA. So for 2015 this will be so, for 2016 this will be so. So this approach, I think, will make us lose time, and investors will carry out some nonsense work because of this, and also we are taking this information from the investors also. So when we clarify this point, we can tell something clear. Hello. So in the recent times,
hakikaten çok kaliteli, çok dolu, çok bilgili bir oturumdu. Başkanım, şahsınızda teşekkür etmek istiyorum.
So I would like to extend my thanks to you.
Benim sorum yine TEİAŞ'a olacak.
My question will be to TEİAŞ again.
Sorumdan önce şöyle bir şey söylemek istiyorum. Şimdi Bu
My question,
20.000 megawatt
before my
aslında
question,
2020 yılı içindi. Şöyle bir
this
TÜEC'in arşivlerine
20,000 megawatt was for 2020. So this was
kapasiteydi.
announced for
Şimdi bugün
2020.
gördüm bu kapasite
But
2023'e
now this
dayanmış.
capacity is
TÜEC'den açıklanana göre
retarded
olacak.
to
Avrupa
2023. So
Birliği
my recommendation is that
20-20-20 diye bir
EU
program var.
has a 2020
20
program
yılında
for the year 2020. As you know, the 20%
özel
of
kaynaklardan
the energy will be produced through wind resources. And in 2023, we have a capacity target of 100,000 megawatts. So let's make it 23. So let's make it 23,000 megawatts.
Şimdi 3500 megawattın
So
3500 megawattın 2500 megawattının takribi gerçekleşmekte olduğunu,
So
megawattının
3,500 megawatt will be realized, but the other 1,000 will not be. So we understand this from your presentations. But for this 300 megawatt, there were some measurements, and these were the bestest places of Turkey, and these were the deep-rooted companies of Turkey. And between 2006 2008, the electricity was 2.9 euro cent, and there wasn't any imbalances. And now, when we look now 5,500 megawatt out of this 7,500 megawatt is now chosen randomly, and in the past there wasn't aviation, there wasn't distance issues, national intelligence, or the other noise effects, sound effects. So in the following plans, will you taking also these realization factors into account? Can you say that this this part of this 11,000 megawatts will be like this? So if there will be a decrease from this capacity, for example, can we add this lost capacity over another? So are you also working on it?
23 kulağa hoş geliyor. Ama tabii bu kapasiteler kulağa hoş gelecek şekilde açıklanmıyor.
As you see, of course, there should be some technical evaluations. So this was 20,000 megawatts for 2020, but this was calculated according to the demand projection at that time. But when we revise the projections, 20,000 megawatts can be realized in 2023. This is also technically revised. And in terms of realization, what you say is true. So all the sector participants know this. Within this 11,000 megawatt, there are some unrealistic projects. So of course, when we are announcing the new capacity, if there is a de facto license cancellation, then we should also announce new capacity for these cancelled ones. Of course, if the licenses are
Burada demek önemli olan nokta lisans sahibi projelerin iyi denetlenmesi,
so the license holding projects should be evaluated very well, and time should not be wasted to open the way for the new projects. So we may also add that in Ercüment presentation, you may have realized that there are also energy packages for the future composed of hydroelectric power plants, coal, natural gas, and wind energy power plants. So when we say 92,000 megawatt potential, this potential should be followed by EMRA, because the biggest part is licensed. But when we leave the other resources aside, So after having this 11,000 megawatt connection, you cannot ignore the ones producing. So for this is in the load flows, stability, static analysis are carried out, and short circuit calculations are carried out according to this. So which one of them will lose their licenses, or whose licenses will be cancelled? So if we do this in a short period of time, then you will be right, because there are some points where healthy sound measurements are carried out. So for this reason, the enhanced capacity and also the provinces should be evaluated in terms of their capacity. So for all resources, we need this analysis from EMRA. We also asked for this formally, officially, because they are connected and because they have connection agreements. They have the right to give opinion. So for this reason, their connection agreements should also be cancelled to pave the way for new projects and investments. I have 4 questions. One is to Mr. Yiğit. So we told about wind direction. So in terms of producers and in terms of planners, you do not touch upon turbulence. So in the previous communique, this also created some question marks. So here, the standard deviation, the measurement of standard deviation, and also the calculation of turbulence. Will you have any work on this? And the second question is, with this data, what you plan to do? For example, will there be a more detailed wind map? And I have a question to Mr. Ercüment. So this is a problem that we come across when there is when we order or install the turbines. We do not know how to calculate this, and so please enlighten us in terms of these calculations. And I have a question to Mr. Barış. In the coming period, in terms of shadow and sound, will we wait for a regulation? Thank you for these questions. Related to turbulence, we don't have a work at the moment, but in terms of standard deviations can be submitted as data, I think. In terms of wind map, our previous wind map, as you all know, 10-meter high values were used. So in terms of correcting these will contribute a lot. But also, again, I say that the data will not be shared with anyone other than the owner of the data. So, of course, in powerful flow facilities, there is a calculation for this, but I cannot give the exact calculation to you at the moment. But after the meeting, I can have your email address, and because lots of companies have demanded this, so we can also give this information to you. So we don't have such a legislative work. Because we cannot make a legislation in this area, but of course there are some complaints about this. So the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization should carry out a work like that, but I think they aren't doing anything like this at the moment.
Erman Tercihkan'a, TÜBİTAK Enerji Enstitüsü. Ben Ercüment Bey'e sormak istiyorum. Belki İbrahim Bey sizin de görüşlerinizi alabiliriz. Yani aslında yaptığınız şebeke analizlerinin çok önemli olduğunu ve yaptığınız...
Your network analysis is very important, of course. They are very important for investors, and the connection points are determined accordingly. But of course, we have a recommendation here. What is the implementability of this? So there should be a longer plan, not just load flow. So the wind resource areas should also be involved in this work, and seasonal, monthly, hourly, daily measurements should be involved. So can we have such a plan? So the power plant investor, for example, can foresee 10 years from now, and can he do something like this? For example, in the year 2010 there was such a work in the States involving 20 years, and there the investors know that which connection points will be opened in which years, and they know that how they can be integrated to these connection points. Of course, it's a very difficult work. We are aware of the work that you are doing. Is such a work possible in Turkey? Yes, we have similar works, but of course it will take time to be accomplished. And as I said before, every country has its own power structure and wind characteristics. So for this reason, there should be some detailed analysis. And before capacity announcements in the coming process, the wind efficiency is our first datum, and again the topology of the transmission system. But of course, we do not say that our transmission is weak here, so we cannot announce capacity for this point. But of course, this is not our attitude. So here, of course, we are carrying out some strengthening works. So with these measurement-based data, our target is to provide long-term information to the investors. I would like to make an addition. Of course, while carrying out these works, of course, every year the demand is increasing 7 to 7.5% every year. So, as I said before, of course, there is a large package of projects, and you may know this when you are preparing your system data for the 5 years, 10 years. So you should take into account the resources, and in an assumptive way, the licensed ones can be carried out, or the connection agreement, according to connection agreements, you can foresee such formations. So, of course, our main problem is, for example, let's call them master plans, 10-year master plans, or connection opportunities. But of course, the way is not so clear, uncertain. So this is related with that large package of projects. In the transmission line, if you have nonsense investments, then you will lose more. So if there will be late investments, then there will be loss of production. So there should be real time, or there should be a transmission system infrastructure which is ready when it is needed. You also know that to install a turbine, it is very difficult. It paves the way for lots of problems. So, despite all these problems, what you're talking about is also taken into consideration by us, and in the coming process, Turkey will also have connection opportunities report. So you will see such a transmission line. Sorry, the interpreters are working for 2.5 hours non-stop, so we will deeply appreciate if we have a break. So, Dr. Yüksel Malkoç, as said before, in terms of renewable energy resource areas, in terms of renewable energy zones. So there is a law on this, and the Ministry of Energy should define these resource areas. So this regulation could not be enacted up until now. We are working on it. So here, in terms of renewable energy zones, we will define this wind, solar energy, hydro and geothermal resources will be handled in an integrated way. So if there's a wind, there is resource, so we should evaluate this. But if there's solar energy, geothermal energy concomitantly, then this will be taken into consideration as an energy terminal, and the infrastructure improvements will be carried out together with TWEC and all the other related institutions, so that this energy potential on that point can be involved in our system in a sound way. So we have works going on about this. We will have a communique, we will have a regulation for this, and I think you have such a work. So these two works can be carried out in a parallel way. I think this will be fruitful, and so these are named as renewable energy resource zones in the literature. So all these renewable energy resources are taken into consideration in an integrated way in this approach. So in European countries, in the other countries, this was done. I believe that this can also be done in our country. So thank you. What you say is very important, because the operation cost, and also this will also affect the customer costs, consumer costs. When you do this, all these individually, solar energy, wind energy, of course, if you handle the supportive systems all together, of course, this will make our work more effective. As you all know, such renewable, the problems for this renewable resources is the hot cost formation should be minimized. So for this reason, there should be such a work. So if you work together, I think it will be very fruitful. Hello, İbrahim Erden from Enerjisa. I have a question to Ercüment. Maybe also you can contribute. So the announced capacities will be province-based, you said. So when you say province-based, will you give individual information for each of them? Because if you will, if there are potentials in a province, for example, this will be fruitful. But for example, in Karaburun, for example, Izmir, I have a capacity, but I don't know if there is a transformer or not. So for this reason, what will be the preparation for this? Of course, transforming from transformer-based capacity to province-based capacity, this decision is coming out of some problems we have experienced up until now. So binding investor to just one transformer
teknik
of course,
prensiplerle uyuşmayan
will
kararlar
not
durumunda
be
bulunuyor.
compliant with some technical realities.
Tabii ki,
So,
tabii
following our province-based
kapasitesinin
announcement,
başvuru olduğunda
of course, when there's an application for the province capacity, there will be some competitions, province-based competitions. So, following these competitions, for example, we will not give a decision that there is not a closed transformer to you. In conventional power plants, as you see, if there is a need to have a new connection line, if there's a need for capacity increase, these investments are being determined. So this is also valid for wind basin terminals. So the necessary transformer capacity needs will all be determined, and the project will become connectable to the system.
Ercüment Bey'in de söylediği gibi
So, as Mr. Ercüment said,
şu an yaşıyoruz. Baştan beri bahsettiğimiz büyük paketle ilgili olarak sık bağlı
related to the large package, so
hatlar yapılma durumunda kalıyor.
because
Hat yapmak artık kolay bir şey değil.
the
Yani
connection
bazen bir
opinion is given for one single transformer, then this may influence the decision for this capacity increase. So of course, raising awareness or
küçücük bir taşın çıktığı bir yerde o taşın
because of, for example,
köşe taşı olması
uh, raising awareness in the public, there may be some resistance problems. For example, in some, locations, they find a stone, for example. This, for example, stone can be a part of a castle, for example, an historical castle. So for example, sometimes the people resist to this, and so we waste 7 to 10 months because of this. Of course, we need flexibility in terms of investors and operators, because
kanun gereği yapıcısı TEİAŞ.
legally these can be done by TEİAŞ, and the property owner is TEİAŞ. So expanding this is a duty of TEİAŞ.
Para demiyorum. Süreç el verdiği sürece yapmaya çalışıyoruz.
So if we have the
Yatırım hızına erişemez.
necessary process and time, we do this ourselves. But when we run out of processes or time, we ask for your help. Sorry,
Çok önemli olduğunu düşündüğüm
I think it is very important.
burada katkı koymam lazım.
I would like to contribute here. So when we do this province-based, of course, there will be some complications. For example,
30 megawatt
X province has 30 megawatt, for example. So every part of province, for example, 20, 30 parts of, for example, province will be filled by turbines. So we will spend millions of liras for this. But when you give a transformer, for example, it will be more rational, because the surrounding of transformer will be more realistic.
kapasite belirlediniz. Adam gitti ölçümlerin, diktiğinin bir ucuna.
For example, you will determine a capacity for a province, and then the investors will install fragmented turbines all over that province. So here, EMRA should think about that. The investors should be set free, and to use the wind energy, we should measure. So if there is a closed capacity, if we are one individual company, we can have this, but we can compete with the other ones. I think this will slow down the investments. Can anybody warn the chairman, please, for the interpreters? So you are one of the active listeners of this this session, and you have asked very detailed
bugüne kadar
questions.
kafalarda oluşmuş yapının dışında bir söylem
Of course, there is an extraordinary discourse, and at the first phase we can have some resistances, but of course pros and cons will be evaluated, and
Sayın Oturum Başkanımız eğer uygun görürse bu teknik detay artı
So this negative and positive issues as regards technically, Mr. Zeki may evaluate this after the meeting. Just a small addition. These assumptions actually have been already foreseen by us, but when it is the opposite situation to a transformer center, a very far distant investor, also through a competition, if there is competition, or without a competition, if he is single, or this capacity undertaken just to affiliate to this transformer center, millions of investment has been made. So we know that 154 kilowatts line is not a very low investment share. So let alone the cost, even though if there is a lack of a pile, this will be an advantage. So we made a comparison between both methods, and we may discuss this in detail afterwards. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, it has been a very great discussion. We have enjoyed a lot. I hope that you as audience also enjoyed this session. Thank you very much.
TÜREV'in bu oturuma konuşmacı olarak katılan katılımcılara birer sertifikası var. İzninizle onları takdim edeceğim.
I would like to present to the participants these certificates by TWEC. Thank you very much.